Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Manny Behind the Mic for this Thursday evening, opening day for most of baseball. Thank you all for joining. We got special guests tonight. It should be pretty interesting on the Melissa Lucio theme still. Irma, welcome. Scarlett, hey there. Miss Hilda Williams, nice to see you. Christy from Milwaukee. Ooh, you're far from home, aren't you? Hey, Lisa, yep, Cubs win today. Irma, welcome. Yep, if you guys want to share this, now's a good time. We're gonna bring our guests in right away. For one, it's way past her bedtime. Hey, Liana, Brenda, how you doing? Brenda, oh, you're off today. You can actually watch. Good job. Point of no return. Hi, Debbie. Good evening, Mrs. Rios and Angela. Alrighty, we've got tonight Jennifer Toon. Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, and it is way past my bedtime.
Way past. I know you were telling me you go to bed at like 7 p.m. or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Get up early, do you?
I try to. It just depends, but I feel so much older than what I am, and it's probably the years in prison. But yeah, I'm here. I was excited to be on your show, and of course to talk about Melissa. I'm always down to share her journey and story to create the outcomes that we want for her and her family.
Yeah, there's definitely a big push to get things done time's running out, and unfortunately it seems like we've had some people say, well, why did they wait so long? It's just a typical last minute thing trying to get. It's like, yeah, that's not actually the case. It's just the way the system works. Some people can't make moves until certain procedures are done, and the governor can't step in until something is done, and everything's just a waiting game. It's frustrating. I know it is. And okay, so you, when did you first? How did you meet Melissa? What's the beginning of that friendship?
Oh gosh, so I got to the Mountain View unit, I guess, in 2010. I'm not sure when Melissa got there, but I know that over time the names on death row, because we gave them their books, we filled out their book orders. We'd have to take them down there with the librarian because death row is very isolated. They're not allowed to interact with general population. And for a long time, they weren't allowed to interact with each other either. So definitely different nowadays. So what I noticed through the years, and I was a librarian for about 9 years, almost 10 years, long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, I found a good job in prison and I embedded myself in it. Had access to the magazines and the newspapers and the outside world. But I really enjoy books. I'm a freelance writer too. So,
cool.
I noticed that, Melissa, she was always one of the girls down there that whenever she would send in her book request, she would make a little note like, have a good day, and, a little happy face. And, she just in the small ways that we were able to connect, because like I said, they're so isolated. You just had a sense that she was a little bit different than the rest of the women down there and in the facility in general. Because, as you can imagine, there's some not so nice people in women's prisons, right? But, I tell the story that the librarian that worked there years, the actual staff member, she would go down and deliver their books. And, if we made a mistake or something, sometimes we're tired, we want to go back to the dorm, and it's like, well, gosh, we'll fix the accidental book order that we didn't mean to send them. They didn't get quite the book they wanted. But she always corrected Melissa's. Melissa already read this, can you just change it out? And, and I asked her one day, I said, gosh, I'm trying to get in before count. And, but, you always have us come back to work to make sure that we get at least Melissa's books, right?
Yeah.
And she said, And the reason why, she said, because Melissa, no matter what is going on down there, and the women in Texas are on death row are housed in a facility called MPF, which is the multiple purpose facility. So there's a section of that building that's just death row, and the rest of the facility is crisis. So there's women all over the state that come from all different units that they're in mental health crisis. So there's always a lot of action down there, a lot of, we called them ICSs, which is like immediate control of the situation. Officers would have to suit up, boot up, and, restrain people, and, a lot of crisis. So some days were real hectic there, and the girls on death row always had to hear that all the time. And, the librarian was like, they have good days and bad days, just like anyone else. She said, but Melissa, never. She said she is always pleasant, always humble, always so kind to me. She's never snapped at me. She's never, been short. She's just always so sweet. And I just try to make sure that she at least gets the books and the services that she needs, because she's kind of my favorite down there. So
because there were some, I know they were trying to say, where did I hear this? I heard this somewhere. They were trying to say that, oh, she was a problem inmate, and there were altercations, and even
absolutely not
altercation with the guards even, and that she was a problem. And I know somebody was trying to push that, and when I asked around, they were like, no, no, that didn't come out of anybody's mouth.
Absolutely not. And a matter of fact, there is an ex-officer who became a really good friend of mine, and she's always watches my YouTube channel and some of the advocacy stuff that me and Maggie do. And she worked at Mountain View for years, and she writes Melissa, and we've had conversations. She's like, just the thought, she goes, I'm glad I'm not there, because I can't imagine the day, hopefully not, the day that the staff there have to put her on the van to transfer her. She said, I can't do it. And it really bothers her. She goes, Melissa was always, again, one of her girls that she was very partial to on death row because of her spirit. And the whole time I was there, no one ever complained about Melissa's behavior.
So what kind of books, is there something typical that, when people, I guess in particular, did you only serve the death row area, or did you serve the whole unit?
The whole unit. So the books that had to be delivered were the girls that were in cell block, who couldn't leave their cells, the girls that were in protective custody, like Yolanda Salazar, and I can't remember her name, Diana Zamora. They were in protective custody. They couldn't be allowed in the general population for their safety. And then you had the girls on the row. And so I serviced everybody coming into the library. And it is interesting. The girls on death row and the girls in protective custody, they didn't do a lot of fiction. They didn't read romance novels and, the fantasy novel. They really didn't. They love nonfiction. Especially Melissa. She checked out always nonfiction. And that is very peculiar. And we used to talk about that, me and my boss, that you would think of all the people on the unit that wanted to escape and read something that would take them out of that place. No, they were always eager to learn. They were always learning and wanting more books about history and art. Melissa really liked art books, history books, gardening, because we had a warden for a while that let the girls in protective custody and death row kind of keep a little garden. And they have a very small rec yard. It would kind of let them garden just a little bit. So they always wanted books about gardening and flowers. Just, I know people have a preconceived notion of women in prison in general, but especially women with high case profiles and women on death row. But most of that is just complete. I don't know if I can use profanity here.
Say whatever you want.
It's complete bullshit. I mean, and I think somebody had mentioned the other day, maybe I think it was one of the representatives that me and Maggie talked to today. She was just like, I had a vision of what death row was going to look like. And then I visited the unit, and that's not it at all. And Melissa, especially, just exuding this quiet peace in spirit. It really struck me how different my preconceived notions of what death row looked like. Now, I don't know about men's death row. I'm sure it's pretty grimy and much different, but that's a whole nother discussion about how different men and women experience the system.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people, when they hear death row, I imagine, right, for women anyway, right away they think of Orange is the New Black, or those, the old women on cell block, whatever movies that were done
Yeah.
back in the 70s.
Oh, the
and
70 movies. Those are terrible.
Yeah, I know. And was the actress who was in a whole bunch of them? Pam Grier.
Yeah.
She was in a whole, they're called black exploitation films, but she was in a whole bunch of those women on cell block H or
Caged
whatever.
Heat. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I know.
They're pretty bad. That's I have to tell people that have these salacious fantasies about that. That's not what women's prison is like. The only thing that I really loved about Orange is the New Black is that it did capture relationships pretty accurately.
Yeah.
But in terms of the facility and the freedom of, well, at least in Texas, it don't work like that. It's pretty bleak. It's pretty lonely. The cells in the women's death row, I did work for a while, for a couple of months, in the risk management office as a clerk, which basically, he would go around and check lighting and sound, because there are very particular rules and regulations for death row, like sound, noise, and stuff like that. And we went into an empty cell, and it just felt so enclosed. It felt like to me, I felt like I was in a submarine. It was just so closed in with just a tiny little window. And they're not bars, they're doors,
Right,
so, very, very little small space. And they have a little day room in between all the cells that for a long time, the only way they saw each other was work, which they would tear shreds of cloth for the special project. The older ladies that worked in another wing, they made dolls and stuff for little kids. And so they would do craft stuff. And the only time the women on the row ever got in trouble was because, believe it or not, TDCJ gave them scissors so they could cut fabric. And they got in trouble because they were trimming each other's dead ends on their hair. They were giving each other little trim jobs on their hair. And this was a big deal. And we were all like, here are these women on death row that are supposedly the most dangerous women in Texas, and they've got scissors in their hands, and all they did was trim each other's hair.
Cut each other's hair, grooming.
Right.
Yeah. I heard you mention the name Yolanda Saldivar.
Yeah.
So she's in there.
Yeah, she's in protective custody, which is another building. And it's very similar to death row in the way that it's very isolated. So the women that are in protective custody, I believe now, Amber Geiger, the police officer in Dallas that accidentally shot her neighbor. Yes. So she's there now. Usually high profile cases that, they think that those women are in danger in general population, which I know people with far worse offenses, and they were in general population and nobody bothered them. But Yolanda, no.
Yeah, for those that don't,
never.
Yeah, for those that don't know who Yolanda Saldivar is, she's the one who actually shot and killed Selena, the Tejano singer here in Texas. This was in Corpus Christi, if I'm not mistaken. And I had heard that there were a lot of threats on her life early on. They wanted to take care of that problem, if you want to say it like that. And I always wondered if anything would ever happen. I always wondered, is somebody going to do something, or is she just going to... So I guess protective custody means it's not general population over there at all. Is that correct?
Right. They're in their own dorm. They're not quite controlled and isolated from each other like death row, but they have their own building, their own little rec yard, their own little day room, and they only interact with each other. They're not like, anytime they came out or they had to escort them to medical, or if death row had to be escorted to medical, they stopped traffic, or they stopped movement on the unit. It's again called the ICS, so everybody stops, and we had to turn around. We had to face the wall and not look at them. And they live a very isolated life. So I'd gotten a letter from Melissa this week, and she is just so like overwhelmed and appreciative of all the amazing support that her and her family have received. She said, how it is. Us on death row, we're put back here and essentially forgotten, and to just have this level of attention and love and concern and support is just it's just absolutely, I think, almost mind-boggling to her, and she's just so grateful and humble about all of it.
How have you known any other women on death row? Did you get to interact with any other of the other death row ladies?
Yeah, I'm actually. I think I'm okay friends with Darlie Routier. We write, and I know her pretty well. She's been there for years, since 1990, 1995. I'm not real familiar with the other women, but, except through our little interactions and when I was working in the library. But I know Darlie, and I've written her, and I think that'll be another case eventually, that there's some huge red flags and concerns. I don't think is.
And I remember her being in trouble for. I mean, she's accused of, I guess, the murder of one of her kids. And then I remember the biggest thing from after that was when she got in trouble for this big time, for just kind of having like a birthday party. He was already, after the fact that he's gone, and she was having a birthday party, which, at first I didn't think it was so weird. It's like something you would do for, you go and you memorialize your parents or somebody who passed. You go to the cemetery and you have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and say, "Mom, I miss you," whatever. So I really didn't think that was all that too weird, but apparently some people did. Anyway, so is she on death row, not life sentence? Is that correct?
No, she's on death row, and
Yeah.
I believe the Innocence Project picked up some of her stuff late last year. Some DNA and some blood that was not hers or her children, and because it was two children. And she was also attacked during that. And interestingly, there was I forget the true crime author's name, but she wrote a book called Precious Angels, and she sat through her trial, and she just, she ripped Darlie a new ass. I mean, it was pretty bad. Yeah. And then when some evidence came out years later, pictures that weren't allowed in trial, her arms were just black from defensive wounds. She had been cut across the throat, just millimeters from her artery. And the true crime writer, she's got something on her website that says
Barbara Davis.
Yeah, completely disavow this book. If I would have seen this, if the jury would have seen this, it would have been a total different outcome, because there was this narrative, and this is what, certainly we've seen in Melissa's case, is a narrative that the state created immediately, and that's all. They just tunnel vision that.
Right.
And you mentioned Darlie with the birthday party at the kids' graves on their birthday, but that was just a tunnel vision of one snapshot of a moment when it was her whole family out there celebrating. Right. It was the neighborhood. Right. They had a service before that where she was unconsolable. But there is this narrative about this, what we think of you as a woman and as a mom, and they are like a dog with a bone. And it's a travesty. It really is, because you have these misconceptions about women and crime and mothers, and this is the outcome. This is what happens.
Yeah, and there's certain, whether it's photographs or video clips that get snapshot, and they become permanent. And that's the problem with the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
And it's a very big problem. And there's another case I'm revisiting myself, and I don't want to get a whole lot into it, but the whole Scott Peterson case out in California, Scott and Lacey
Mhm.
Peterson. That's another eye-opening something in which I need to see a lot more and read more on it, because it's that's a whole other show. But I'm just
You're right.
waiting. I want. Okay, let's get back to Melissa. Um, yeah, how have you? When's the last time you talked to her? Do you talk to her at all? Is she allowed? I know she's not allowed to hardly at all to be on the phone. I know with her
Right.
immediate family. I know
Yeah.
John. Yeah,
Yeah. So we just have letters and JPay, which is the email service that you can email people who are incarcerated. I had wrote her back and sent her some pictures of the work that me and Maggie have been doing with our advocacy groups, and in our shirts, and it's especially meaningful. I think, at least it is for me, and I imagine it is for Melissa. A lot of time people get out of prison. And they just want to forget it, and they don't want to, like, it never happened,
yeah,
and you just forget about the people that you left behind. You hurt for them, but sometimes the hurt is so overwhelming, I just want to shut that experience out. And for people to get out and give back and continue to fight for the people they left behind, it is deeply impactful, and it means something very deep to the
yeah,
people on the inside. So I think that she sees that in a special light, and all the women do on the inside. And I told her that in my last email. I said, I want you to know that our network of women who have been incarcerated, they are rallying around you like you have no idea. Because one of those myths is that, women don't stick together. And that's a misunderstanding of what our experience is like on the inside, the psychological
yeah,
abuse and terror that we receive from the staff members. It's just different. So it makes us, because and I'm not saying fathers don't care about seeing their kids that are locked up, but for women, it's just any threat of doing anything wrong means that you won't get your visitation, you won't get the phone, you won't be
mm,
able to connect with your family. So
yeah,
we just lived in this psychological frame of mind, not to do anything wrong. And so we didn't, like, the men will get together and do a hunger strike, or they'll do a work strike, and the women won't be cohesive to do something like that. And so on the outside, it can look like women, well, they don't know how to stick together on the inside, but we do. We stick together in a way that is, under the radar of the authority,
sure,
because we don't want the consequences from retaliation. So
yeah.
it just means something for the women on the inside, that we still remember, and we fight for them.
Did she ever talk to you about her case, her situation at all? Did she ever tell you stuff that went on, that kind of thing at all?
No, her letters are right now just focused on, it's strangely, right, encouraging us and encouraging her family, and thinking of others, and not so much of herself right now. And I think that really struck us when John posted a really rather long message from her to the people that are supporting her, encouraging us not to get down or sad, and just know that God is in control. And I think that's what's so unique, because let me tell you, there are women on the inside, and you usually know the level of their guilt, because it's always all about them, and it's always about,
Mhm.
this person did this to me, in the sense of, like, there was one lady that wanted me to help her about her stuff, and it was a fraud case and some money laundering, and it was like, oh, I just was trying to help this bank out by, and I'm like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like, there's always this blame and this me, and you get this icky feeling from it, like, oh. But
Mm,
with Melissa, everything through this process has been about, have faith, and know that God's in control, and whatever you need me to do, I will do. I'll pray for you. And it's just a totally different interaction and feel that is genuine. And it's certainly different than the women that claim to be innocent, but you just know, like,
Right.
you know it from their demeanor, their spirit, their aura. And I think that's what my boss and a lot of the staff members and the women that do have contact with her, that's the thing they notice about her, is that there, you just know it. You just know it from her spirit that she's actually innocent.
Yeah.
It's not like the other women that claim to be, and you're like, girl, bitch, please, you are one of the most vicious people I know. Not that I want them to suffer either, but it's a difference.
And not just the women, the men. I mean, I
Oh
guess
yeah.
in prison, oh yeah, I'm innocent. I mean, everybody is. So, can I assume that you've seen the film, The State of Texas versus Melissa?
Several times. We
Yeah.
just had a screening at UT Law. I think it was 2 nights ago, and me and Maggie had some discussion with the students, and we had about 50 letters that got written that night, sent out to the board. So yeah, I've seen the film several times.
Yeah. Is there anything in the film, or I should say, is there anything that's being said or that you've read or seen that bothers you when it comes to when they're talking about her or the case, or
Yeah,
some of the things that are being said?
yeah. Actually, now that you say that, for the most part, the people that I know, even the legislators that we've talked to, the first thing out of their mouth is, "I saw that film and was like, something is wrong. This needs more investigation. This needs another look." But the people that have been with some questions, which usually they're not thoughtful questions, they're usually pretty nasty. So I kind of already feel like they've already made their mind up. And me and Maggie and Lori, another advocate, we did something on my YouTube channel, just talking about the case and the role of trauma. And I had some trolls leave some really nasty shit in my comments, which I just delete.
Mm,
I don't care if people get mad at that or not. It's my channel. I'll do what I want.
yeah.
But I think one of the things that I hear from people is, oh, well, the baby had bite marks all over her and she had a broken arm from abuse. And the thing is, what we know from forensics, very qualified, well respected forensics, is, first of all, that was not proven to be a bite mark. Bite
Right.
mark, you know, the use of that is junk science, and that was never ever proved to be a bite mark. Number one, and another specialist said she did not have a broken arm from abuse. She had what seemed to be a hairline fracture, and we know Mariah had a little bit of a gait problem, and she fell
Right.
a lot, and
Yes. Yes.
a normal little fracture that even I know grown adults get when they have hit their foot the wrong way, and they come to find out they have a tiny hairline fracture. So
Yeah.
it's amazing. And you said that earlier, like, people get a snapshot of something, they get that clickbait,
Right.
and they run with it, and it's like, well, and me and Maggie have dealt with that too online. Have you read this? Have you really informed yourself to know what the hell you're talking about? And if you
Yeah.
haven't, then just shut up, or watch the film, or do some deep dives, like, and that's what I like about you and your show. You've got a variety of things that you talk about, but you've actually looked and listened and read, and you make an informed decision. And most people, sadly, don't.
Yeah, and it gets tiring to argue with them. I've been arguing with this one guy for a few days already, and he's like, "No, she's all the bruises on her body," and the doctor and the lady at the beginning said it was the worst case she's ever seen, all the bruises, and you have to explain, okay, well, the bruises are there because there was an injury, whether she fell or it could have happened in foster care, which is another theory, that she was already injured in foster care. Something happened there, and they just gave her back to the parents. I don't know how deep you want to get in, or how deep you can get into it. But one of the theories is she was injured or abused in foster care, and foster care just one day brought Mariah back to just here you go, and then they never came back to check up on her. So I mean, that in itself is shady. But what the doctor said at the end, that all that bruising is a result of a trauma, a head injury, a brain injury, and that's why bruises start to pop up all over the place shortly after. And so by the time they do the autopsy, now they think, oh, look at all the bruises. She beat the crap out of her. That's right. All the blood stops clotting after death, and it'll seem like bruises are popping up from that somebody got into a fight, but that's not the case at all. And people just don't want to hear that.
Right. They want to.
Yeah, and this one guy's like, well, I'm going to follow the science. I'm going to follow whatever the doctor said. I'm like, yeah, the doctor said it's because of a brain injury, but he didn't want to hear. He doesn't want to hear that, and it gets tiring.
It does get tiring, and Manny, I'll tell you, there's a lot. Well, I think you can believe this. There are many women in the system that are there for very similar things. Of, I saw a really good documentary one time about shaken baby syndrome, and how in the past they believed that, it was immediate. As soon as the baby died, as soon as they had a convulsion, it must have happened right then. And so what would happen is that caretakers would be interrogated, much like Melissa. And, you've got the police and a medical person saying the baby died because something happened right then. What did you do? You were the only person there. And so the parent is like, I don't know. I mean, they're telling me that something happened, and I believe them because they're medical experts. So I don't know. Did I spank her? Did I sit her down too hard? And that turns into, I did it. And then the science shows, like you said, later on, we learned that babies can have head injuries for days.
Right.
And then all it takes is a slight bump, and they convulse and they die right then. That injury can be there for days. I have had friends that have gone through very similar offenses. And that's, another thing I like to point out to people is that they offered her 30 years, and that's non-aggravated years because it's injury to a child. So they didn't think that she was a danger to society to put her to death. It was because when Melissa finally said, hey, wait a minute, I'm not responsible for this. Well, let's make an example of her. And all of a sudden, we're going to try this woman and sentence her to death. We went from 30 non-aggravated years to killing her. But you're absolutely right. You can't. People have a preconceived idea on a clip of something, and that's it. And they don't want to hear anything else that challenges that.
Yeah, and especially that whole bite mark situation, that kept coming up in the comments here and there. And I'm like, there's no proof that it was a bite mark, and it was likely wasn't a bite mark. It could have been, I mean, who knows what it could have been, but it could have been a pinch,
Mm-hmm.
And again, and this is something I started doing at the very beginning of my involvement in this, which was, well, look at what the one daughter and the other daughter, what they've been saying. But I've gotten away from wanting to point fingers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's focus on the task at hand, which is getting Melissa the relief that she needs. Yeah. That should be the focus right now. You want to do finger pointing later, then I'm sure that'll come up at some point in the future. But right now, the most important thing is to get Melissa out or get her clemency or whatever the steps can be taken for that. But that's another thing, that bite mark, that's not a bite mark. And there's a whole other documentary about a bite mark, the bite mark junk science that's out there,
mm-hmm.
and how it's just not. And most, I think, I don't know about every jurisdiction, but it's not allowed like hardly anywhere at all. Only in a few jurisdictions, and even then, sometimes, because it's not an exact science.
Yeah, and people heard that, and that's all they want to hear. And like you said, you just stop arguing with them. I don't argue with people on social media. I might be firm about something, but if you get nasty, I just delete it, because I'm all about channeling positive, good energy in all the stuff I do, but especially with Melissa's case, I just don't have time for it, and she doesn't either. So
Yeah, and the whole, it's like you have to tell that story. It was moving day. Everybody was helping move, and kids included. The husband was there as well. Something happened, whether she fell or was pushed, whatever the situation is at that point. Possibly then is where she hit her head. Well, why was the mother? She wasn't paying attention, and she was neglectful, and it's like, well, it was moving day. There's
Mhm.
14 kids or however many there were at the time, 12 or whatever it is, 13, packing and unpacking the activities that go on, and she's trusting her older kids to look after the other kids, right? They would police each other, and I mean, like any household, you're not going to catch every single thing, every single situation that happens to your child.
Right.
If they're running around the house, you're cooking dinner and they're running around the hallway and they trip and crack their head on the wall. Should you get death row for that? No.
Right. And again, it goes back to that judgment about what a good mother is, and listening to her trial attorney talk about her and her kids during the film is just infuriating. Um, and and I think Melissa being worn down in the interrogation and just maybe having some suspicion what actually happened and
Yeah.
wanting to protect her family, and also as a mother just feeling, and Maggie can talk about that too, about as a mother just feeling responsible for any and everything, regardless of what has happened. I think that she carried that in the interrogation, but um, certainly not being responsible for any type of abuse or Mariah's death. I just don't believe that. I just don't.
Yeah. According to everyone that was interviewed, we're talking about family, friends, CPS, even, there was never, ever, and going back to when she was young, there was never, ever any history of violence from her. She's not a violent person at all. She was never a violent person. So why was she just that? Oh, now she's got Mariah. Now she's violent, and she didn't even have Mariah. As soon as she was born, They found. They found. Let's see. Okay, now I'm wondering if this is true. Did they find drugs in Mariah's system, or they were in her husband's system, and that's why the
I'm
child
not
was
really
removed?
sure. I'm not really sure. It may have been the husband. Um,
Yeah, because I know I've been saying they found drugs in Mariah when she was born, and that's why they put her in foster care. But then somebody corrected, said no, they were not in her system. The father tested positive, so they removed it. See, that's what I'm trying to figure. I'm trying to get to that.
well, Manny, and it's like this again, going back to that. What is so? Melissa deserves to be on death row because she had an addiction, because she lived in poverty, because she had a bunch of kids. And I've even heard people say that, like, "Oh, well, she shouldn't have kept having all those children if she couldn't take care of them." First of all, how dare you judge somebody's culture and family and religious beliefs?
Yeah,
Who are you to tell somebody how many kids they can have? And so she shouldn't have children because she's poor or because she's struggling with an addiction. And I know many women that struggle with all those things, and they have never harmed their kids. It's not indicative. It's not oh, because you have an addiction or you're in poverty, I bet you abuse and beat your kids or whatever. And that's just simply not true. And that goes back to that we have an idea of what a mother is supposed to be, and women are held to this impossible standard when it comes to being a woman and being a mother. I mean, I hear it for myself. Like, I've never had a desire to have children. Oh, there's something wrong with you as a woman. Why? like, why is that when
right.
men?
For a guy, it's okay, right? But
Right,
for a woman, oh, something's wrong with her.
exactly. And so there's this weird, strange standard that we hold women and especially mothers to, that leaves no room for any type of uh, you know I always found it interesting in the criminal justice system. Women are sentenced harsher, they're disciplined in prison harsher than men. And it's kind of this idea that, oh, boys will be boys. Men are just, that's what they do. They fight. But how dare a woman do anything other than what we have in our minds of what a mother and a woman's supposed to be? How dare she have an addiction? How dare she have an anger problem? How dare she get overwhelmed and tired and want things for herself? Or I think that plays a huge role in Melissa's case and in a lot of women's case.
Yeah, it's I really, really, really hope that Governor Abbott is going to step up and do the right thing, because I think this is definitely a I keep okay. So I watched this other documentary, and I'm starting looking at the other situation I told you about, and in a discussion I had a few days ago, someone's like, "Well, what are we supposed to do?" I'm like, "Probably a moratorium, and every single thing's got to get looked at all over again." And they're like, "Well, do you know how long they could take?" Well, yeah, that's why they don't want to do it. They just rather just snuff everybody out and then keep going. But that's a horrible situation. That one documentary, I don't know if you've seen it, called The Phantom on Netflix.
I haven't seen that one.
Dude, my goodness. Guy was accused of murder at a convenience store. And somebody said they saw this Hispanic guy, and it was kind of a general kind of a sketch. Picked this guy up. I forget his name right now. I apologize for that. Went to a trial, convicted, death penalty, executed. He's gone. Well, guess what? His friend comes along and gets into trouble. Oh yeah, I'm actually the one who killed that girl, not him. And oh man, that'll piss you off watching that. And that's the problem right now. And I'm not ashamed to say I am, at least right now, for the death penalty, but it's got to be airtight, 1,000% solid, and it's got to be something that warrants it. I mean, something. I don't know. I know it's hard to say. Well, that means you're not. Like, well, I am, and I'm still struggling with that. But right now, there's a guy here in Brownsville who killed his 3 kids, decapitated them, all 3 of them. The police arrived, and he said, "Arrest me now. I did it. I killed my kids just now." And that was before Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
And they just denied a motion on him for a new judge or something like that. But that dude, that was way before Melissa, and they already gave her a date, and they want to put her out real quick.
Right.
So,
So
him is a situation, I would say, put him to the front of the line. He doesn't need to be on this planet. But for everything else, if it's not airtight, how can you, if there's a doubt? I always say, if there's a doubt, then there is no doubt. You can't. And I don't know how the juror, I have a problem with the jurors that they wanted to go with what the rest of the jurors were saying because it was late or they don't want to spend another day there. And I'm like, see, that's so damn wrong.
Right. Somebody's life is in the balance. And, I think all the state systems are human. And so we are all prone to human mistakes and flaws and errors. And I think that's the problem with the death penalty is that, I get what you're saying. Like it has to be airtight. It has to be 1,000% perfect. And there's nothing about human decision-making that is perfect and flawless. And when it comes to executing somebody, we will never have that 100% totally, I'm sure this went smoothly perfect. And, I will say too, that we did, at least in Texas, start doing life without parole. And, I'll tell you, many people would rather die than have life without parole because it can be far worse than death.
Yeah, it's that case of I want to say his name is Bunton. He's going to be 80 years old. Mm-hmm. A gentleman who's been on death row for 30 years, and appeals and a slow process. it just extended this thing for that long.
Yeah.
Now he's got health issues. He's in a wheelchair, and I know death penalty action. Abe is like, yeah, you know what? He's old. He's not a threat to anyone. Just let him go. Um, and I don't think I agree with that. He did kill a police officer, and actually, people that watch this program, people actually know that police officer's family, so they've got strong opinions on it.
Yeah.
And I get it, but at the same time, I don't know. Part of me is like, well, I mean, he's that old and serious health issues. He's not going to make it much longer. And on the other hand, it's like, you know what? He was convicted. Just you got to carry it out and get it over with. And so I'm a little torn on that one. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but
Yes.
yeah, it's I don't know. I am conflicted on that. I guess because he's old,
Yeah.
and and that's another form of cruel and unusual punishment. Something that should have happened, let's say, 10 years ago. Now we're extending it longer, and for him, it's just not knowing. It's like not knowing, and then one day they're going to come and say, and which they did, say, all right, here's your date, and I don't know. That is kind of cruel as well. So
Right. Well, I think I guess, and you're totally right. There are some offenses that people will completely admit to that are horrendous. They're horrendous. I guess, even the worst of the women I knew when I was locked up and still know, based on their crimes, there's still something inside of them that speaks to me as a human. And I guess for a person that has made mistakes, that has been incarcerated and had criminal behavior, there was still something redemptive about me. I was convicted in the early 90s under the super predator theory, which was children that commit violent offenses are soulless. I had a psychiatrist actually tell me, well, Jennifer, some children don't have souls. And I struggled, Manny, I struggled for years. Like, I really wanted to know why this had happened. And I'm being told by a medical expert that I don't have a soul or a conscience.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't accept that. And knowing that I was able to have redemption and look at the work I'm doing now and with the passion that I have, I just believe the best, even in the worst. That doesn't mean that, they don't need to be punished or accountable. But I just can't, I don't feel good about the state having control to kill someone in the name of society and perhaps get it wrong, because that blood is on everybody's hands. If Melissa dies, that innocent blood is on every voter in the state of Texas. And I just don't know if people really understand the gravity of that spiritually and emotionally. I just don't think people connect to that.
Yeah, we're gonna get to some of these questions right now. Some of them we can answer or not. Some are just comments. So are they trying to get her not put to death, which means like a stay of execution, which is a clemency, or are they trying to overturn the whole case? I know at the bare minimum, give us a stay and give her a stay, and then figure out if they're gonna overturn it, commute it, time served, whatever the case may be. But I imagine the first thing is to just stop it, put a halt to it real quick. Did she know Carla Faye Tucker?
I did not know Carla Faye. I just got to prison in 97, was transferred from juvenile, and Carla that was the year that she was put to death. I do know Pam Perillo, who was her best friend. She was actually on death row, the only woman to ever escape death row, and she is free now. She actually won 2 appeals. Her first appeal, she won, and she was convicted again. The second one, her death sentence was commuted to life, but she was, I believe, 2 days away from execution one time.
Is she the one that they made her sign a no contest? Is that what it was? No contest, so that she could not sue the court.
I don't think so. I don't
I'm
think
trying to remember her
so.
name. Yeah, there was one who sent it. They're like, "We'll let you out, and you can be free, but you got to sign this document." And that's basically she cannot sue for damages,
Yeah,
and she
I
got
don't.
that right to be free.
I think that they when they did her second appeal, her son asked her to please not go to trial again. He did not want to
Mm.
go through another trial and see her convicted all over again. So she pled out to the life sentence, and she was put in general population. And it was several years later, she was denied parole many times. She finally made parole. I believe it was in 2019, pretty recently. And I did an interview with her on my YouTube channel. It's really impactful. It's really powerful. She was a part of, you know, that whole process when Carla was being put to death, and she was with her the whole time.
Mm.
And very powerful story, their friendship. But
Yeah, you got to give us a YouTube channel so everybody can go check it out there too.
sure.
Well, what was it? Darlene? She is on death row. Darlene, right?
Yes.
That's what you
Yeah,
said earlier. Okay. Carla F. Tucker used to call it death row, life row.
she did.
You and Maggie are kicking ass. That's from Abe. I'm pretty sure. How you doing, Abe?
Yeah.
Did you meet Wendy Davidson?
Oh, oh my God.
I think that's a
Maggie.
yes.
Maggie's probably laughing right now.
And we're going to bring Maggie's here behind the scenes. She's going to come up in just a minute because
Oh gosh.
we're going to talk about the work that you guys are doing too.
Yes, I know Wendy Davison. She is something else.
So for those of us who don't know, like
Yeah.
myself, tell us why that's funny because I have no idea.
It's funny because my friends and they just know the backstory with me and Wendy's friendship. And I guess I could just tell it now because it's just funny. But so Wendy Davidson is a very pretty blonde girl that she was a vet. She loves animals to this day. She used to help take care of the little stray cats on the unit. She's a very sweet person, but Wendy is one of those people that we just talked about where you're like, I'm listening to you tell me how innocent you are, girl. You know you did that. Like, I don't know why you just won't say, yeah, I did that. She has said that she is not responsible for murdering her husband, and maybe she's not, but she does admit that she disposed of his body in a pond and repeatedly checked on it to make sure that it was sunk. And her whole story, I remember the night we were at Rec and she's telling me, and it just got crazier and weirder. And I'm like, what? But Wendy had a little crush on me, and she would go to Rec and she wanted to be my girlfriend. And that's why I'm laughing, because everybody teases me about it, because Wendy is a little, she's a little fatal attraction. She's still my friend. She's a sweet, like I said, it's this strange thing that you know people that have done really, really bad shit, right?
Oh,
And
yeah, I
then
see her now. Wendy Mae Davidson. I got her. Yeah.
but you get to know them, and you do this time with other women and women like Wendy, and you just accept them for who they are and where they're at, and they become great friends. And that whole stain of whatever put us all there is kind of just, I don't know, I don't want to say normalized, because that's not the word, but we just learn to love each other despite our crazy reasons for being in prison. So that's why all my friends that are watching this, they're going to be like, oh girl, not Wendy Davis.
All right, so Chuck, again, does she want clemency? Well, she wants to be out, and I know ultimately they want her out, and that may happen. But at the very least, one thing's got to happen before the other thing can happen. So I think the ultimate outcome is just to have her out time served, something like that. Some people have been convicted that convinced that Melissa was abusive to Mariah and only Mariah. How does one raise 14 children without having to strike them, but changes their method of discipline all of a sudden? And that's one thing they talked about all the time. She was never, even giving discipline, she never gave discipline. She always passed that off to her husband or to one of the older kids, but she could not even discipline. Not that she couldn't, but she wouldn't. And I don't think it was in her to spank or to whip or whatever kind of discipline. So and yeah, so everybody's like, so she's never violent in her entire life. How does one day she just becomes violent and starts abusing the kid like crazy? It just doesn't fit.
Right.
It doesn't. Just like Carla, she glowed. You can see Jesus in them. A person's character doesn't change after the 13th child. Yep, that's exactly right. She's trying to get good with God. That's all what that's about, my opinion. Well, if there's a good thing that comes out of being incarcerated, a lot of people do find God, and you know what? That's all they got in there, man. You can't blame them for that. You can't take that away from them or reduce the value of that, because that's all they got in prison. They don't have a lot. And and how can you say that that's a bad thing? A lot of times that's what it takes. That's what allows them to keep going. I can't even imagine what it would like to be in prison like that. People need someone to blame and point the finger to feel like they have captured the monster. Yeah, and that was probably referring to, we were talking about how the daughters are kind of against a lot of the family. There's a lot of division in the family. And I was trying to reach out to Selena and back then John, and after watching Selena on TikTok, what went on there, and then with her brothers, and they're just name calling each other. We were communicating my live with her live on TikTok, and people were sending messages. Oh, Manny's saying this and Manny's saying that, and then Selena said this and Selena said that. And after thinking about it after that night, I was like, hey, I don't want to, and I keep saying this, I don't want to exploit the family problem right now. I think that's very unproductive to do when the main focus again has got to be Melissa and doing everything we can for Melissa. I don't want to show the world, look at these problems, look at them fighting and stuff, and then that's just one more negative thing to put on top of everything else.
Right.
And I didn't want to get into that. But then I met John a few times already, and John's a straight up guy. He's trying to do everything he can. He's not perfect either. He acknowledges that, but right now he's trying to do right by his mom, which they all should be doing, in my opinion. Brenda says a hairline fracture can absolutely happen at any time, especially a little one. My daughter broke her leg, and I had no idea how it happened when she was 1.5 years old. Yeah, that does happen. Wasn't there a report yesterday that over 100 kids died in foster care in Texas last year alone? Phew, I had no idea. You know what? Let's bring Maggie. Are you ready to come up here? Oh yeah, she's got something to say.
Yeah.
Hey Maggie.
Hi.
How are you? I know reading some of these, you're going.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I had no idea that this was. I mean, does this sound right to you?
It is. They just released the report that in 2019 and 2020, 100 kids died in foster care. We have children sleeping on desks in caseworkers' offices because they have no placement. But what I wanted to speak to was, I'm a mother.
Okay, what do you guys work for? What do you guys do? First of all, you guys are on an organization called what?
I work for Texas Center for Justice and Equity, and it's an organization that is nonpartisan policy, and we do like legislation at the state level to end mass incarceration. My role is to bring in the voice of the formerly incarcerated. So I was in prison.
Okay.
And then Jennifer, you want to tell them what you do?
Yeah, and Maggie should also mention that she heads up the statewide leadership council, which is a branch of where she works. It's a coalition of formerly incarcerated folks and their loved ones. I work at a nonprofit that works on disability rights, and my job is to focus on the criminal justice system, the education system, how that intersects with mental health and disabilities. And then I also run a group called Lioness, which is Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. It's just for formerly incarcerated women to create change. We've been working diligently about Melissa's case, so we're all about it.
Here's another one real quick. Anyone seen the viral video where the 4-year-old flies, jumps into the air off the flight of stairs wearing a cape? Oh man, I haven't even seen that one. Go ahead.
I was in Walmart the other day wearing my Free Melissa Lucio shirt, and this guy came up to me and he was like, "Hey, I saw that." He says, "My daughter fell down the stairs and I caught her by the ankle." And he was like, "But if she would have kept going, it could have been me. I could be on death row."
Yeah, and that's the thing. Nobody wants to acknowledge that. Even, these people throwing stones, they themselves have been in that situation. They just don't think of it right then. They're like, yeah, okay, if that's the case, then how many people would be on death row?
I was talking to John today, her son John Lucio, and I was telling him that the reason why this is so important to me is because I'm a mother who has suffered with addiction for 20 years. I have 3 children. And so when you think about being addicted, guilty, fighting these demons every single day, and then you have 3 children running around. She had 14,
Yeah.
And then my oldest daughter used to give my son Tabasco and treat him, because she was picking on him.
Yeah.
And so I would have to stop that, and I'd be, either looking for drugs or whatever. I ended up losing custody, but I know what that's like just with 3 children. And so my oldest could have done anything, and it would be me, sitting on death row. And I even asked my daughter, I said, if you would have done something and I ended up on death row, would you admit it? And she says, no. She's honest. She's like, I'd be scared. They have you on death row. They would just switch me out, And that was her thinking. And she's only 15 right now.
So do you guys think that, is there any truth to that somewhere between one of those, the daughters did something, and I'm not saying intentionally to kill, but to bully. Right. And then, yes, as a result, something happened. Mom knows this, and she's kind of covering for them.
Yes.
Never thinking in a million years that they were going to get her on the death penalty.
Yeah, because there's that guilt that I should have been there watching my child. I shouldn't have left that responsibility onto my other children. But I am suffering inside. Yeah. I can't handle these children. I need to rely on the older children. And so that the mother, as a mother, you just feel just like I lost custody of my children. And so I feel guilt every day that they wake up without me, Yeah. It's my fault. I did that. And so I just can't imagine losing a child and then being attacked without even giving time to think about what happened.
Right. Yeah, because really she hasn't had time to grieve. I mean, she was taken away and that was it. She was gone. And I can't even imagine that. That's a tough situation for anybody. And Isabel says Melissa's guilty of being poor and ignorant.
That's right.
Yeah, Abe kept saying, "What people don't know. I want my lawyer. I want my lawyer. Don't talk. Don't say a word. I want my lawyer."
And if you're innocent, you don't think that.
Yeah, Mayela, who remembers baby Brianna Lee? That was kind of sad, and they let the mother out too soon, or I believe it was the mother's name is Stephanie. Let's not forget about Casey Anthony. Oh, the Casey Anthony. That's a whole other. I'm planning on doing all these shows, all these true crime shows, but man, there's so many good ones and good ones. I mean, sensational, right?
And you know what? So I like it when I mean, I don't like it, but if you haven't walked in those shoes,
Yeah.
please don't say what you would do, because I trusted an investigator on my first prison sentence who told me, "Oh, I know you have children. I'm going to make sure that you don't go to prison. Blah, blah, blah. Just work with me and I'm going to work with you." I sealed my own indictment because I trusted him.
Mm.
And they used that against me and indicted me the next day.
Oh, wow.
You know? But I believed, I had this inherent belief that the system is here to help me.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
I think we all do.
and that's what somebody said, that Melissa felt the same way. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to say guilty right now, and then we'll fix it as we go along.
Yes, the courts will save me.
Right.
Because I'm telling the truth.
Right.
And it has to work because that's what it's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. I went in and out of prison and jail for charges that other girls went in and out for. I didn't have the money to get an attorney. And so I ended up doing a year on less than a gram, which is less than a sugar packet. And this other girl gets out in 30 days for 3.5 grams.
Oh, yeah. That's a way a flawed system for sure.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it's true what people say. You know what? If you got money, better things are going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm. And her co-defendant got 4 years.
Oh, yeah. 4 years.
4 years.
Freaking slap on the wrist, and he's living a nice life right now, or trying to anyway, but he's able to. So that was my other point. It's like, how is that fair? Why her and not him?
And these children are advocating for their mother. So let's say that we're doing justice, right? She's already done 15 years. She was a negligent mother. She was living in poverty. Okay, she's done that time. You have children that you are about to traumatize. If you care about Mariah, why don't you care about the brothers and sisters who loved her too? Mm-hmm. They loved her. And they want to save their mother. They lost their sister, and they don't want to lose their mother. Yeah. So if you really care about human life, the heartbeat of Texas, Texas loves the heartbeat law. Melissa has a heartbeat. Her children have heartbeats. What are we doing?
Oh, yeah. By the way, John just popped in with a message. He's still at the airport.
Oh, no.
I think tomorrow's his Dallas thing, right? That's tomorrow? I thought it was today for some reason.
It was today, but they got stuck at the airport.
Oh, no.
We were up there. We were going to go eat with them, but we didn't want them to miss their flight.
Oh, yeah. They're still at the airport right now.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, let me get to a few other comments here. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Somebody said, I don't believe anything that Wendy Davidson says.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Let's see. I love the way you speak and present yourself, Jennifer. Also, I'm not saying this happened with Melissa, but a parent can snap. Trust and believe. It happens every day. And yeah, I mean, that happens too. But in this case, I don't think there was even evidence of that with Melissa anyway. Of course, the parent can snap, but so can an adult. They do it every day. Road rage, jealousy, drugs, and all that stuff. As a victim, I would never forgive the criminal, no matter the criminal last breath or age. A crime is a crime. As a human, I would never hurt another human. I care for a good human, and I would give my life to save a good human, but never over a criminal life.
Oh, well, let me tell you about somebody that I was in prison with who was a good woman. She was 75 years old. Sweetest little bitty tiny lady in the world.
Yeah.
She went to prison for misappropriation of funds. She was a sweet lady. She didn't know what she was doing was wrong.
Which is a fancy word for embezzlement? Is that
embezzlement?
What
yeah.
Okay.
It was somehow she didn't know what was happening with her books, but it was her books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she says. Who cares? Even if not, she's 75 years old. She doesn't need to be in prison. You know, I was in prison with a 16-year-old girl who got drunk. I mean, 18. She got drunk when she was 16, accidentally murdered somebody. Manslaughter. But
That's tough right there. Manslaughter, what, like a drunk driving thing, maybe? Is
yeah,
that
a
what?
drunk
Oh man,
driving.
yeah.
Let me move.
Drugs are a choice. That the redemption is everything. Wow, awesome women. Definitely agree.
Hang on,
Let's
I'm
see.
about to move.
Yeah, you
This.
do what you got to do. We're good here. We're just catching up on the comments. Wendy is a character. While out on bail, she was rearrested for going to a bar, leaving her kids at home alone. And a waitress from the shopping center found the oldest crossing the street in his tricycle. Holy crap.
Yeah. Oh, Wendy.
Addiction is an illness. Being an addict does not make a person a murderer.
That's right.
Yep, very true. Mentally unstable. Addiction is a disease. Yeah, it is. It's, I know a lot of people. I've read a lot the last few days. Well, she had a choice. She could stop. She, why did she? It's not easy like that.
Right.
From what I understand, it's not. I mean, I can't speak to it personally. I've never done that kind of stuff, but I had friends who have, and they say it's not. You just wake up and it's like it's calling you right there, and when they're that addicted, it's not something that can be tackled alone.
Do you know that I would wake up in the morning and I would be just, why did you let me wake up again? Because I know I'm gonna have to fight this demon. I know I have these kids I have to take care of, but I knew I couldn't stop on my own. If I could, I would have. I love my children. Yeah. I miss them every freaking minute of the day, but I couldn't. It had a hold of me.
Are you going to be able to? That's something you're still working on, or
yes,
I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool too. But
yeah, I have a really good relationship with my oldest daughter now. She was adopted by my mom, and my mom started bringing her to see me in prison.
Okay, good.
And so that kind of like gave me hope.
Yeah.
And so what Jennifer and I do is we fight for legislation for people who've been affected like us. Well, one of the bills that we fought for this last session was House Bill 2926, which is a family reunification bill. Because in Texas, there's no way to get your child back if your rights have been terminated, right? There's other states that have pathways, but Texas didn't.
Once they're terminated.
Once you're terminated, you're done. And once I got out of prison and started getting stable, I was talking to CPS and reaching out to them, telling them I'm doing better. And they kept telling me, your rights have been terminated. Yeah, I was there that day. I remember what happened, but y'all haven't adopted him yet. They have him on 9 medications. He's been placed in 9 different homes. He's 12 years old, reading at a 3rd grade level. Y'all aren't doing anything with him. I am stable. So this bill now gives me a legal pathway to get him back. And so he's on his way home. They're just, they're real quick to come take him. Real quick. But it's been over a year since they've been bringing him home. So, and he's just in a home in care that he doesn't need to be in. They maybe a kid who needs to be there.
Oh man, that's terrible. Here, Abe says, no, that comment is old. John and Michelle were retrieved and are out to eat on their way to the Airbnb.
Good.
Okay, good. People care about themselves. I have family members. I'm so sorry. Once you're face to face with demons, it's not easy. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. An addict is forever an addict. Every day is a struggle to stay.
I don't believe that, because I don't have the same spirit that I did then, and I have the coping mechanisms that I didn't have then. I went through a lot of trauma that I didn't know how to deal with, and now it's just trauma.
So are you guys in the they say that, I guess for anyone, but in this case we're talking about women that they've had abusive childhood, or even in adulthood, sexually abused, physical abuse, that that should have something to do with their sentence, or understanding why something happened, or what, in this case, why it. People want to say, well, it was neglectful. Say, okay, yes, it was neglectful. But do you guys, is that pushed enough? Do the courts really listen to that? Like, well, she was abused by many people in her family, the males there for
From the
years,
time that
and
she
nobody
was
said it.
young, she was
Yeah.
molested.
And she told her mom what happened, and they didn't believe her. She
And
didn't
she
believe
said,
her.
"Oh, don't say that. That's a lie."
Right.
And so that does something to you create these habits that you don't know until you start digging them up and say, "Oh my God, that's why I think that way, because forever this man told me I was this,
Yeah.
and so I acted that way." And it's just things that you subconsciously do because it's now my grandfather and my grandmother were in today's um standards would be abusive. They would throw us outside with the thing of water, and
Oh yeah.
if you come back with a snake bite, oh well, we might make it to the hospital. Cousins had 22s that were shooting guns. But that's what they knew.
Yeah. My
So how can
father,
you?
my father only whipped me one time ever in my life, and it was Sunday evening. He told me not to leave the house, but I left the house. I went down the street to play football in the middle of the street, and he came and he whipped me right in front of everybody. He's like, "I told you to stay inside," and there came the belt, and so nowadays he'd be in jail.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
guess what? I never went out again without permission. Yeah. Okay. They keep asking about. Do you guys know about the Gabriel Fernandez case?
Yeah, that was disgusting.
Yeah.
And those parents, I couldn't watch that. Did you know about it,
That was
Jennifer?
tough to watch.
Mm-mm.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
you have to look at. I think it's called the
CPS,
Trials of
Trials of
Gabriel
Gabriel
Fernandez. I think
Fernandez.
it's on Netflix also.
Oh, okay. I've seen that several times, and I've never stopped to watch it.
That was hard because there was a lot of video. Wasn't there a lot of video of him alive and being a
And
little kid and
CPS
stuff?
failed him so bad. There are children who need to be in care and but we also need a state that's able to take care of these children. We don't need
Yeah.
to take these kids and make them sleep on desks and then allow them to be trafficked into the streets.
Yeah.
But
Man, and we can go on with, oh, have you heard about this kid, or have you heard about
yeah,
that child? And oh man, it's never ending right now, unfortunately. Um, is there anything you guys got coming up? Anything you want to plug that you're doing, or some videos or event or anything like that you got coming up? You want to plug right now if you like.
Oh, well, I always do my On the Rec Yard. That's the series of videos I do. I do interviews. I usually do that on Wednesdays at 7, live on YouTube and my Facebook. And then me and Maggie are going to hopefully be doing a panel discussion with Pam Perillo that I mentioned, who was friends with Carla. And hopefully Bobby Moore. He was exonerated off of death row. And so Texas After Violence Project, which is another organization that we work with sometimes. They collect oral histories. They have an archive of oral histories about police violence, mass incarceration. So we hope to have a good panel discussion in person, yet to be determined location, just so people can hear from those who have survived death row, what that experience is like, what Melissa and the other gentlemen are going through right now as those dates get closer. So it should be good. We'll keep you updated about when and where. And if people near Austin want to join us, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, if you want to send me whatever links you got to your website or to your YouTube page, if you want to put them in a private chat, and I'll gladly post them right here.
Cool.
So they can check out your page and your YouTube page. I appreciate you guys coming out. Oh, you got something else? Whatever. You want to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about Anthony Graves, who is the death row exoneree 138. He was falsely accused of a heinous crime and lost 17 years of his life. And he's the reason that I started telling my story, because he went through hell, state-sanctioned violence. And today, he's just such a beautiful person. But we took 17 years of his life. We were wrong. What if
Yeah.
we're wrong now with Melissa? You cannot get her back once it's over. And if you claim you love God, Jesus was the first falsely convicted felon. He was wrongly accused and we executed him. We got it wrong.
Mm.
So, whatever you believe in, Melissa, let God say she did or not, you know?
Yeah, I know. It pisses me off because people are trying to equate her with, they caught her with a smoking gun. It's like that's not what happened. It's not, and there's a difference. There's a difference. If you're caught wringing somebody's neck or shooting somebody or stabbing somebody, you got the knife, fingerprints, and a knife. When this was something totally that she did not do. I mean, neglect is a whole other story.
Yeah.
But that does not carry a death sentence. You know?
She's done 15 years. Her co-defendant did 4.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Jennifer, awesome. Thank you for opening up to us. Same thing, Maggie. We appreciate you, hearing your stories and just opening up and being honest about your past lives and your interaction with Melissa. Definitely, you want to come back on anytime again before, we hope to get some good news before the 27th.
Yeah. I think, that was another thing I wanted to share.
Oh, okay.
I got a message while y'all were talking earlier that and I left my phone in there, but on the death row website, Melissa's crime has now been changed. They've taken out the bite marks.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, really?
It's been updated. So it's like the person, Lewis, Bo was the one who sent it to me. It's like if they would have taken Carla Faye Tucker's ice pick out and just said, it was an accident. Because it's like they're preparing for something. So.
Oh, whoa.
Right, yeah. Like,
whoa.
Hey, we're
breaking news.
We're trained as formerly incarcerated folks. In prison, you are always reading the tea leaves of what, like every move the state makes is for a reason. And it's indicative of something. So
for years, and he sent me the snapshot of the archives. It said bite marks, abuse, worst child abuse case ever. Now it says accidental.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
So
I wonder if John knows about this yet.
No, I just found out.
Found out right now. Oh, John, if you're listening,
yes,
we'll talk later.
I'll send you the pictures, John.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, please. You talk to John, so definitely get that. Make sure he's aware of this because that is significant.
It is. I was like, "Are you serious? Is this a good thing?" He says, "Yes." It's like they're preparing. They don't want us to come back and say. It's almost like they want to justify why they're taking the death penalty off the table. Almost. I'm not saying that that's what it is, but
it's a change. If anything has changed in any language or any posting of anything officially, then we need to keep an eye on it.
Yes, I'll send it to you. Let me go. Yeah, I'll send it.
If you can just give me a quick rundown so I can just talk on that.
Let me go grab my phone.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, I mean that is big news. That's something is happening there.
Yeah, and Lewis keeps us up to date. Him and his mom, she's an attorney, and they go visit the girls on death row. I think that he's having a visit with Melissa this weekend, I think. But so they're usually on top of stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah, Taylor. Hey, Taylor. I love Jesus, but I believe pedophiles deserve death row. Okay. So I don't want to get rid of it. Just have it for crimes against children because we need to protect our babies. But yeah, Melissa needs to be pulled off death row. Hopefully something happens for her. See, and that's another one. Sexual crimes against children, that kind of thing. Child abuse. Yeah, I've got a very low tolerance for that. And
I could talk about that for a whole another.
I mean, there's some people are just, I don't know. I mean, just evil. I don't know. I hate to think people can be born evil, but is it possible? And if so, is there any chance of rehabilitation for people like this?
I don't know. I don't know. Not when they're legalizing underage marriage.
Oh yeah, that and yeah, I got a lot to say about that and some other issues also, but we'll keep that for another show.
So, Abe, I'm sending you the screenshots right now. He just sent me a message. Okay, so he says, I just lost it. Sorry.
Look, see, there's another grandma right there with technology.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
He said, there's information about Melissa TDCJ death row information. It used to say there were bite marks, bruises, hair pulling, etc. on Mariah's body. Now they describe it in a way to make it sound like an accident to cover their butts. Sounds like they're preparing for something big. So now it says paramedics were dispatched to a residence where they found an unresponsive 2-year-old who subsequently died. Evidence of abuse led to the arrest and conviction. Now, the previous one, what it used to say on TDCJ's death row archives, it used to say EMT found victim not breathing with no vital signs. While emergency personnel attempted to care for child, they cut off the victim's shirt, found purple-green bruises on her entire torso, head, face, and shoulders. The subject was arrested and transported.
That's a big difference.
There's a big difference,
right? That's wow.
So
that would have been changed from TD, right?
TDCJ, yeah. Well, it said it was changed. This was around the time her case was reversed by the Fifth Circuit. So somebody high up knew that this would come back to haunt them.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, see, that's, and I know a lot of the things happening last week, legislators talking to John and the family and going to the prison, talking to Melissa. It's all positive things. And we just want to be careful. Don't count on it 100%. Cautious optimism is
right.
what I've been saying, right?
That's great. A cautious optimism, because, it's hard when you've experienced so much trauma and distrust. I was in a hearing today listening to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department talk about, children, they come to us with so much childhood trauma and adverse, all these adverse childhood things, and we need to care for them. And I immediately said, so you want us to trust you, the abuser, to where you have long histories of decades of sexual abuse and the juvenile justice that I experienced as a teenager to this day, 30, 25 years later.
Right.
It's so hard to trust anything positive. So I love your cautious optimism, but I think that definitely creates a momentum and a faith and an energy that I think that hopefully will consume all of this and see Melissa home.
Especially something like this where it's coming from that place.
Yeah.
I call it that place.
Yeah.
It's not just a rumor that's, it says this, or I think whatever. This is like legit stuff.
Yeah, we spoke to the legislators. And these are legislators that are very hard to work with during session.
Yeah.
So we see from firsthand that they've come together, and they are both sides of the aisle fighting for Melissa.
So somebody asked about these bite marks again. What do you guys know about the bite marks? My whole thing is it was not necessarily a bite mark.
Correct.
Could have been some kind of pinch
Bruising,
or a bruise from an object or something that just happened to look like a bite mark.
Right.
And I saw a photo of it.
Sister angry that she had to deal with her sister again, and she wouldn't
could
stop
be as
crying.
well.
and I don't know how to deal with the child, so I'm gonna beat the hell out of her, bite her. We don't know. I mean, that's
But that was never
explored.
yeah, because it can't be used. At least
Right.
not in Texas anyway.
Right, and that it
That
was just the initial, forensic medical examiner, and I'm sure she's a lovely lady, and she knows her stuff, but she got it wrong, and that was her knee jerk reaction when she saw that, and you know, I'm I think the forensic specialists that have been the best in the world have looked over this evidence, and I'm going to trust them over her. I just am, and she just saw what she thought were. But they, even Representative White that we spoke to, and he did an interview for one of the local stations. He had said, "What are we still doing? I thought this bite mark evidence stuff went out the window years ago. We know that a lot of that is junk science, and there's just no evidence of it. And again, like we were talking earlier, it's hard once people hear something to get them to unhear it and to think logically and rationally about something."
exactly. Once that gets out there, boom, it's stuck there, and that's all they just want to run with that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I am gonna post something on that, and go send that to John if you haven't already. Yeah,
I
please
did.
send it. Okay, good.
He just texted back and said, "Wow." So I can't figure out how to get it from my phone to the computer.
Oh,
So
here,
if you send me a message with
here.
your cell phone number, I can send them.
Or send it through Messenger. Grandma?
Oh yeah.
Golly.
So first of all, I want to make sure is that the source you're getting that from, they're okay with this getting out?
Yeah, I asked him.
Okay, good.
I said, "I'm about to go live. Can I please share this information?" He said,
Yeah, or Messenger, or I just put my mobile number in the text there in the private.
And in fact, the person that I got this from went and saw. He's going to see Melissa regularly. His name is Lewis, and he's got a heart for the women on death row, all of them, and so this is like personal for him.
Scarlett, so they also think those daughters that say their mom was abusive are covering up for each other. They didn't think this would be happening, and that the truth would come out eventually. And I think by now they know, but as Lynn Marie Garcia kept saying, that there is no statute of limitations on murder. It doesn't mean once Melissa, if she were to be gone, that this thing is over.
Right.
And it's not, no matter which way it goes, it's not over still. And at the same time, again, and that's just me. Other people feel differently. I don't think anything was done like intentionally to kill somebody.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you can bully so much, and a little kid was going to fall and trip. And once their head hits the ground or a step or a staircase or something, it's just one of those things that should not happen to any child. It's going to become an injury, and it could be a fatal one, as it was in this case. So if something happened there, I think it did. I don't think it was meant. They were bullying, but not necessarily wanted her dead.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But you can't see in the future what's going to happen, and
kids don't have that final. This is permanent.
Yeah. And Abe, how do we pick who gets killed? Race, money, politics, geography.
Money
have more to do with who gets killed than the severity of the crime. Yeah,
exactly.
I know. It's like there should be a death row or a capital punishment system with people that only deal with that constant, like, I don't know, like a panel of experts, not the what do you call it? The attorney that gets assigned to you, the public defender,
Jesus?
that
what
kind
about
of thing.
God? Why don't we let him have his job and we just do ours?
I know it's tough, Abe. I get what you're saying. I know, and I'm not quite there yet. Child molesters, that kind of thing. See, don't need them around the planet. Does castration work? I don't know. You know, is that an answer? I know there's a lot of men who would not like to walk around this planet without certain parts, and I don't know. I don't have the answer.
But
Well,
Yeah.
and the thing is, the like Abe is saying, like who do we decide that gets killed? I know the women on death row. I knew women at Mountain View with far more severe,
Hmm.
crazy, and I don't like to use the term sociopath loosely, but even though that is defined as having a mental illness, women that, oh my goodness, if it would shock you how horrifying some of those offenses towards their children, and they weren't on death row. It's like, well, why does this person, just because they came from this county with this background, with this amount of money,
Yeah.
they're put there, while this person, this offense was far more heinous, and they've got 50 years. So
look at
it's like,
OJ.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we get it wrong.
Okay, I just got the message. Okay, I'm gonna pick this. So where it changed is the damn it, it won't blow up. I can't blow it up here. Is it like a description of the crime or whatever? Is that what
Yeah, it's at the
changed?
bottom.
Okay. Yeah, I can't read that. It's all fuzzy.
Oh, here, I'll blow it up and take another picture.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, right, and maybe there should be a moratorium, like halt everything.
Yeah, just until we figure this out.
And yes, is it more work? And yes, is it going to back up the system forever? And like, yeah, but maybe
They could have done it right in the first place.
I don't know. There's people, and I'll admit I was a fan of China's capital punishment system. I don't know if it is like that anymore, but theirs was carried out within 2 or 3 weeks of a guilty verdict.
Mhm.
And it was done and over with. And you know what their crime rate is in China? It's almost non-existent. For a reason, right? Because people see that from what I understand, it's public. It's not, behind four walls and nobody can see anything. It's meant. I know it's meant to intimidate mostly, but I don't know. Do you believe that something like that would deter crime?
No,
You don't think so?
I don't, because the thing is, the women that I've spent half my life with, and my own conscience, where I was and where they were mentally and emotionally, and we're all responsible for our choices. Now, the offense, when I was a child, I was a child, and that's a whole nother discussion about children who commit crimes. But in that frame of mind, Manny, I didn't think about the death penalty. I didn't care about myself. I hated myself. I was deep in the throes of my mental illness, and it wasn't a deterrent. You know what I mean? It's like, if it were, then it would have already worked.
Yeah.
And I think with China, I think there's a lot more fear of their government than just public executions. There's so much more that I think those people are terrified from their government than just that per se.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking here, it's got to a point where the death penalty takes so long and appeals, and so people can live for an additional 20 years. Yeah, I don't think they're afraid of that anymore. It's just it's not effective. I don't see it as effective, at least not here. I don't think they're afraid of it. And
No.
and you have repeat offenders going back to prison. They come out and they're involved in a shooting already, because now they made friends in there, and they've been in there once or twice or 3 times, and they're not afraid of it anymore. Now it's like another home, so they don't care if they go back. So they keep.
Yeah, well, it's not about I'm not afraid of prison anymore. It's that I don't care. I have such low value in myself that that's not really it. People commit crimes out of desperation and trauma and all these complex things, and not so much, yeah, it's true, running around with a certain crowd, but that's not the core of it. The core of it is a darkness, that comes from pain and suffering, and it's just not a deterrent, because if you don't care about yourself, if you hate yourself deep down inside, I don't give a damn where I am. And it's not that I don't fear prison. It's just that I'm dead inside because of the things that I've gone through and what people have done to me. So I don't care. I don't care about anything.
Yeah. Here, Abe. Okay, Manny, you are mistaken about China. Just about everything you said. All right, let's get some extra. Okay, perfect. Yes, fix me, correct me, tell me who to talk to, and I will definitely correct myself on that for sure. Yeah, I'm not one to put out the fake news. I really am not. I'm going by stuff that I've heard growing up. You know the whole story. Oh yeah, in 2 weeks you're dead. Oh yeah, they bill the family for the bullet. All that kind of stuff. That's stuff that's been in movies, and you hear about that all the time. So, yes, I will definitely stand to be corrected. Absolutely. Put me in. If somebody can put me with Abe, we'll talk. As a neuro ICU nurse for 24 years, head trauma can sometimes go unnoticed. Sometimes within 3 months. I've seen it in so many patients. Yeah, it is. It is a thing. A head trauma. I mean, look what happened to Bob Saget. I keep bringing that up on my shows.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think something else is going on there too, but the family wants to cover up all the medical records, autopsy report, all that. They don't want that out at all. And I think, why? If it can help somebody, if it can help people understand why, I don't know. But that's a whole other program in itself too. Let's see. Okay, yes, got perfect. The guidelines for capital punishment need to be clear, concise, and consistent throughout the nation, so as to be fair and reasonable and expected.
And not just capital punishment, drug charges. If I'm going to prison for a year,
right. I mean,
you don't send a cute little blonde-haired girl home, just because she was Facebook's finest hoe.
So I don't know if you're talking about Wendy Mae Davidson. I mean, she's an attractive woman.
Yeah,
she did only get, I believe, 30 years. But of course, too, I mean, when people, I'll bring up Casey Anthony. I know that was a tough case, and it seems like, well, she just got away with something, but if we understand our laws and we understand the level of what is reasonable doubt and a good defense, they did not prove their case for what they charged her for. And that was the case with Wendy. That's why she got less time.
Yeah. They're killing police in the U.S. Real criminals don't care about a public execution. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Thank you. All right, Abe, have a good night, buddy. We'll talk tomorrow, please. Let's talk tomorrow. Karina. The West Memphis 3 is also a good example. Oh man, have you guys seen that? The original first movie?
Yes, yeah.
I was in shock when it was towards the beginning when they showed the bodies of the kids.
Yes.
I was not expecting that, and I was shook up for a few days. That was like traumatizing. That's why I told people, we talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, if you're gonna watch that, be careful because
Well, and when I first saw it, I had this feeling like, F her. What did she do to that baby?
Yeah.
As a mother, how could you do that? And I was like, I just can't even watch this, And people are doing that. They're judging it right there, stopping,
Yeah.
I continued to watch the show and watched it again and again and came to a whole wow, But that first emotional response made me feel vengeful. But once my thinking brain came on, it was like, oh, hold on, So you can't just go off of your first, and
that's what And when I first saw the documentary about Melissa, I didn't even finish watching the whole thing. I saw the beginning where they kind of showed the photos, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And then listening to the daughters, and I didn't finish way to the end. So I'm like, yeah, but, she's guilty and she'll be put to death. And then a month later, I saw it again. Yeah, let me watch it again. And then I picked up new stuff which I hadn't before.
Yes.
And still didn't finish to the end. I thought the bruises. Oh yeah, she's been the worst case of child abuse, whatever. So a few weeks after that, let me watch it again. Let me finish the whole thing now. And then that's when I caught the doctor at the end who said it's a brain injury that could cause this. It'll look like she was beat up like crazy, but that's not the case. And he said even injuries from like 3 months ago can come up and resurface, and those bruises will show up there. And I was like, wow.
And her attorney was against her. So,
dude, I don't even want to talk about that guy. I don't want to mention his name, give him any publicity.
Right.
But yeah, definitely had he did not care at all. Anyway,
yeah.
Listen, we're going on almost 2 hours here. I appreciate you guys for coming on so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome anytime you want to come back. If you got stuff you want to promote or whatever. And we can have this discussion again, maybe, I don't know, a week or two later on, if we don't have any other big news regarding Melissa, which I hope we do.
Me too.
Yeah.
I sent you those pictures blown up a little bit, so maybe you can see.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Awesome. I will do that. Thank you so much, Maggie.
Yeah,
Jennifer, great talking to you. Please, you're friends of the show, and you're welcome back anytime you want.
Oh, yeah, and my family's in the Valley, so.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
From the 956.
956. Yeah, so I'll be in touch. We'll keep in touch. We'll see how things are going. If I want to talk about some things, if you guys are okay to come back on, I'll gladly invite you on. And
yeah, just hit us up. We're always down.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. When we hang up, don't hang up yet, guys.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us tonight. It was a very, very interesting conversation with Jennifer and Maggie, and talking some Melissa Lucio, talking some law and order, if you will. And got some breaking news tonight while we were at it. So trying to find out some more about that. So we'll see. We will be in touch in a couple of days, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll go live tomorrow. And have a good night, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit.